right, well, we'll go ahead and get started. Well, thank you everyone for tuning in and welcome to the Mental Health in Real Life conversation. Today we are with the Mental Health Sisters. They're here to let us know a little bit about mental health and how we can kind of stay well during this time during COVID. They are two licensed psychologists in Florida, but I'm going to give them the floor so they can introduce themselves to you all.
All right, so I'll get started. My name is Dr. Dyona, and as Ashley mentioned, I'm a psychologist working in South Florida. And my sister and I kind of came together. You know what? Before I talk about the mental health sisters, let me let my sister, and then we'll talk.
So my name is Josie Augustin. A lot of people know me by Dr. Joe. I'm also, like she said before, a licensed psychologist practicing in the state of Florida. I do testing, therapy, coaching services, and just want to help minority community get access to services that they otherwise would not know about. So,
yeah, I definitely second the last part that my sister said. Just because as the children of Caribbean immigrants, we noticed that there was definitely a need that wasn't being addressed, where people would have mental health concerns but not necessarily feel comfortable to actually reach out to get services. Or even if they were comfortable to reach out, they weren't sure exactly where to go or who to talk to. So we kind of wanted to give those people a voice and a platform so that they could get access to the resources that they needed, which is why we created the Mental Health Sistas, just so that we can inform, educate, advocate, especially for underserved populations, and make sure that everybody has access to quality mental health.
Awesome. I love it that you guys are able to recognize an issue in the community and just actively put together. This is just a random question. Did you guys, when it came to you guys both being psychologists, was it something that you both knew together at the same time, or did one want to do it before the other?
She wanted to do it before me.
Yeah.
Actually, when I went to college, I was undecided. So I was for what I wanted to do. And then after taking an intro to psych course as an elective, and I specifically did abnormal psychology, which looks at all of those specific disorders. And I was fascinated by that and fascinated by the thought that I could go into a field where not only I could empower myself, but help others to empower themselves too.
I love it. I love it. Great. Well, with the topic of us talking about, the pandemic and COVID-19, within this whole transition that we're going through, what's something you guys notice as far as a lot of people's experiences with mental health go?
When it comes to mental health, I think a lot of people have the wrong idea of what therapy is. I think that people think that you have to be super bad off, or the symptoms you experience have to be so severe, have to be hearing noises or seeing things, you have to be crazy. And because of that, they often let situations get worse than they have to be because they didn't seek out help in the first place. And I'm not knocking church or anything. I'm a believer myself, but I've noticed that a lot of people would just say, okay, well, just pray about it, or, go to church, or, ask your brothers and sisters to help you. And sometimes that's just not enough. Not saying that it's something that you can't hold on to. But I do feel like in some cases, we have to not only go to God, but go to the resources that he gave to us, which is therapy and, in some cases, other services.
Yeah, I love that you mentioned that because that's just a stigma in the Black community. Mental health is taboo, or like you said, people think people have to be crazy, quote unquote. But it's good that you're bringing this up because I think a lot of people are afraid to seek therapy, seek help. For somebody who is kind of struggling right now in the midst of this and trying to grasp their head around it, what's a good way for them to kind of take that step to get the help that they need?
I think one of the things that helps is recognizing that, as my sister said, a therapist isn't just for crazy people. A therapist is having an outlet or an external person in your social support network. So it's almost like having someone that you can talk to about anything. And the benefit of having a therapist is they don't know you. You don't have to worry about spreading your news, your business to other people. They're non-judgmental. You know, I'm not gonna lie. I can be the person who, when I'm with my friends, I'll tell them exactly what I think. It's not like therapists. They think about their delivery and their approach a little bit more. They're non-judgmental. They're caring. They're accepting. And then it helps you to know that you have someone that you can talk to about those things that you may not necessarily feel comfortable or vulnerable enough to share with, let's say, a family member or a friend.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the big step of realizing, like, you know, there's going to be no judgment. They really don't know you, but they're there to give you that feedback.
Yes.
I think a lot of people right now, like whether they're moms or students or anything like that, they have a lot on their plate, whether they're working from home or they have kids or anything like that. For someone who's kind of struggling, what's a good way to mentally find a balance and like juggling everything while they're at home?
I think it can be hard to set up a routine, especially when you're a parent dealing with kids. But I think it's important that you set aside that time.
Yeah.
Just do something for yourself, even if it's a little bit of time. Like, it doesn't have to be a lot, but there needs to be some self-care there, because if you're not taking care of yourself, then you can't take care of everybody else. It's kind of like going back to those, like, you know, when you're getting on an airplane, well, not now, but
Yeah.
and they're always telling you, before you try to put an oxygen mask on your child, you have to put an oxygen mask on yourself first, because otherwise you're going to pass out trying to help somebody else. So I think that there needs to be a set routine where it's like, okay, I might have this and this and this to do, but this time is me time, and it's where I'm going to take care of myself, whether it's by exercising, reading, whatever it may be. And then there was another suggestion that a friend actually made to me, where they said sometimes you're going to have a list of things to do. And if you look at that laundry list, you're not going to feel accomplished, because you look at everything that you didn't get to do. Yeah. But you set smaller goals. So let's say you decide, okay, I need to get these 2 things done today. And you see that you've accomplished that. That gives you a sense of, okay, I didn't waste the day. I got through the 2 goals that I set for myself. And then whatever's left for tomorrow, let it be for tomorrow. And not necessarily bug yourself and feel like as if you have more to do. The other thing I would say is, if it really gets to the point where it is overwhelming, don't be afraid to reach out if there's like telehealth, you know, therapy services available to you out there. There's so many people who are, even if you don't have insurance, they're doing free services or reduced services.
Yeah.
So it gets to that point of knowing, okay, I'm reaching my breaking point and I really need some other form of assistance. So I'm going to reach out and talk to someone, rather than suffering in silence and dealing with it on your own.
Yeah, I love that, because I think now, like, the fact that you could have telehealth and like really have access to therapists online is just really priceless at this time.
Yes.
How can one, like, so if, okay, let's say I'm stressed out, but I don't think it's that serious. How can somebody recognize that they need more help than they think they actually do, instead of thinking it's like something normal?
Someone's going to tell you. Okay. I'm just kidding.
I was just about to say, if you notice it, chances are people around you will. And one of the things to recognize when it comes to stress, it's like you have a plate that has all of the things that you can handle. Once that plate is overflowing or overwhelmed, you are going to drop the ball somewhere. Yeah, so even though you may feel like, oh, I'm stressed, but you know, this is doable, this is nothing. Something is going to happen where, you know, you're going to slip up in an area where others are going to notice what is going on, and then they'll probably say something to you. Yeah. But I definitely think a lot of people may be in denial about just how much stress they're under. You know, sometimes we're used to carrying burdens for so long, we don't notice when it's too much.
Yeah, absolutely. Especially as Black women, like, we carry that superwoman cape. We're trying to take care of everybody. It's just something normal around with us. If they're at home and they don't feel like, you know, they don't want to kind of go to a therapist because they're not ready yet, or, you know, they don't really have anybody to talk to, what's a good way to deal with like stress or anxiety, or even if you're experiencing depression?
I think there's a lot of different things you can do. Like, there's the typical coping strategies they'll tell you in therapy. Like, they'll tell you things like you can do deep breathing, which basically means that you're taking in a deep breath, but it's not the way that sometimes we normally breathe, because we've gotten accustomed to a poor method of breathing where it's more shallow. But deep breathing actually involves that when you're taking air in, your stomach is expanding and then you're releasing that air slowly, and it has a calming, relaxing effect on your body, because the understanding is that your body cannot be relaxed and anxious at the same time. So it's a way to kind of bring yourself back. And sometimes people will do this even driving and at a red light. It's like something to kind of just keep the anxiety down if you're driving in traffic or whatever it may be. Or let's say you're going to the bathroom and you decide, okay, before I leave, I'm going to do some deep breathing exercises to help me out. Other things that, you know, you may be able to do are things that we do every day. Like you might have a playlist of different songs that you like to listen to that have a calming effect. Like don't listen to like the angry songs. That's probably not gonna help the way you want. But if you're listening to like a playlist of music that's calming and relaxing for you, that goes a very long way. Sometimes it's also things like talking to a friend or family member. Even if you can't do it in person, you could do it by phone or virtually. And one of the strongest deterrents when it comes to having like stress take an effect on your body is social support. A lot of people don't realize that, but when they do research, it completely changes the relationship. The effect that stress would have on you, it doesn't just because you talk to a friend or a family member. So, you know, doing those types of things, doing hobbies, maybe even learning something on YouTube, something that just kind of keeps your mind on it, are all effective ways to cope.
Another thing that I would add when it comes to the coping is YouTube is like a wealth of information and resources, because in addition to the deep breathing that my sister talked about, there are a lot of relaxation scripts on YouTube where you can like type in guided imagery scripts, progressive muscle relaxation script, meditation scripts. So it's one thing when you're trying to read it to yourself and then do the deep breathing, but on YouTube you can actually find someone who is saying the things for you and you just have to follow along. So that's another thing that you can have in your toolbox to help you manage your stress.
That's great, because I think these little things like YouTube and talking to your family and doing these little things we don't think about, like something simple just to like serve you. And I think during the pandemic now you have so much time to walk outside and talk to friends and stuff like that. That was actually I was gonna say any resources that you guys recommend outside of what you already mentioned to like find maybe some assistance or finding a therapist that works for the person specifically.
Another source for resources, and it's actually one that I use as a therapist, it's a website called therapistaid.com. And they have different, not only articles to explain certain concepts, but worksheets. And you can filter them by like anxiety, depression, stress, and they're free. So you can literally go look at one, you can preview it, print it out, and then you can just use that.
I love that. We might have to get together like a little list of like things like a COVID mental health starter kit. That's really good. I love it.
Find things like that on Pinterest. Like you'd be surprised.
Yeah,
So you
really?
search, different worksheets or stress reliever techniques or whatever, and they'll actually pull up sometimes even PDF files of different, you know, therapy techniques that you can do or things you can practice at home.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love that. Great. Well, I'm trying to see if I had any more questions. I think that was just about it. Was there anything that you guys wanted to share that you felt like was important for someone to hear right now that's going through, you know, the pandemic and they're kind of really stressed out, you know, not sure when it's going to end or if it is at all?
I think one thing that's important to keep in mind is that this pandemic is something that's new for, I would say, all of us. We've never been in a situation like this before where it's almost like as if the world is on pause, you know? So be gracious to yourself. Don't necessarily feel like you have to have it all together or that you have to just get over the anxiety or the stress that you're feeling. This is something that for some people may even register like a trauma. So it's going to take you time to process this. Accept the fact that this is something that you cannot change and focus on the things that you can change, whether it's your perspective, whether it's your environment, whatever you can control within your environment, you do that and you change your attitude and perspective. And as my sis said earlier, I can't say this enough, don't be afraid to reach out to a therapist, especially now with all of the virtual telehealth type services. I definitely think that's something more people should do. And then I know that there are some people who may feel a little hesitant to do like video calls or phone calls. There are now therapy resources where you can text a therapist. So, for example, Talk or BetterHelp, you don't even have to see them. You can literally be going through something, you text them, and then they'll respond right away if they're available, or they'll respond eventually. So there is so much help out there, but you have to be willing to reach out and take it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I would also add, especially for like parents or people who are caregivers, or maybe even like frontline workers, to just really truly be gracious with yourself. I feel like as if a lot of parents are thrown into a different space right now of playing the role of parent and teacher.
Yeah.
And it's a lot. And I've seen people, like, even for sessions where I think sometimes they might be hesitant to reach out for mental health resources or whatever it is because they're embarrassed. And I'm like, this is hard for everyone. Like, don't be embarrassed. You're not alone. There are lots of parents who feel the same way that you do. And you could tell even during our meetings, they're so apologetic. Like, if their kids interrupt the session for some reason, they're like, oh my God, I'm so sorry for this and that. And, you know, like, I'm trying to do this and that. And I'm like, it's okay. Like, a therapist will understand, and you don't have to feel like a bad parent because you're struggling right now. That doesn't make you a bad parent. It means that you just may need to seek out help from someone. You may need some type of assistance to learn a new way to navigate these challenges. But you seeking a good way to manage these challenges indicates to me already that you're a good parent. So you don't have to feel embarrassed for reaching out.
Yes. Definitely. I think like everyone doesn't realize that we're all in this together. It's okay. Like, lean on somebody, lean on your sister, your brother, whoever, because we're all in this by ourselves. And I really love that you brought that up, because it's just like, don't feel bad. It's normal. Like, anybody watching, if you feel bad about it, it's okay to say, I need help, if anything. Yeah.
It takes a lot of strength to ask for help.
Absolutely. It's 3 words, but sometimes it's hard for people to stutter. Yes. Well, I do want to open the floor for any questions. If anybody has any questions they would love to ask, feel free to drop them in there. I'm going to scroll up too just to see if anybody asked anything.
Okay. Don't be shy.
We have them here.
Perfect.
But yeah. Oh, no, go ahead.
Oh, no, go ahead.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, you know, while we're waiting for questions, I think that one of the things that a lot of people have to notice as well is just maintaining a sense of balance in terms of not just for other people, because I think that's what ends up happening. I think a lot of people look to make sure everyone else is taken care of, and then they forget about themselves. So I think that maybe during this time actually gives us some time to reflect, so we can see, okay, what are better ways that we can improve our, even if it's not necessarily therapy specific, but just other things, maybe something you've always wanted to do for yourself and you've never stepped out and done it. This might be the perfect opportunity to do just that.
Absolutely. You have more time to really foster the things that you love. Looks like we have a couple of questions. Someone mentioned something really good, Miss Martine. She said some companies also offer employee assistant programs too. It may not cover all expenses, but it covers some sessions. That's really good to know, especially if you're, you know, you don't really have the resources to think you can find anyone.
Yes.
I actually have had a few clients who saw me for therapy using an employee assistance program, or EAP. And I think that actually got 6 to 8 sessions free. So
Wow.
that's definitely something that you should look into if you're currently employed. And the other question that clients would sometimes have is, if I get an EAP and that's how I'm paying for my sessions, will my job have access to my records? And
Oh, yeah.
no. They may want to know, has she attended the session that was scheduled for May 11th, but can they have access to your diagnosis, your
Yeah.
medical record, therapy notes? Definitely not without your consent.
That's good to know. That's really good to know. They're dropping questions now. The first one is, Doc Sarah says, have you guys considered working together doing any group work?
Ooh.
It's not a bad idea. I don't think that I've considered it as much. I don't know. Have you?
I have not, but that's why I kind of laughed when you asked the question, because now I'm thinking of it like,
Yeah, we might actually do that. It's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Because we haven't necessarily worked formally in group therapy, but we have been in group settings where we meet and we discuss topics and we kind of bounce off of each other, and it's always a good experience. So I would be open to it.
I agree.
Love it.
That's a
Well,
good
if they were, oh, go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just saying that was a good suggestion.
Yes. If they wanted to work with you specifically, how could they get in touch with you guys to kind of work with you and have them as their actual therapist?
So, I mean, if it's specific questions that they have about working with us, they can call or email me. I don't know if you want me to just say that now, or maybe we could include it later in a post.
Or they could also send us a DM to the mental health sisters. They could DM us. We could send you the info.
Yes.
That way you're not trying to write it down here.
Oh yeah, definitely. Okay, yeah. Afterwards, we'll go ahead and get all your information. That way I can post it and they can connect with you.
Perfect. Sounds good.
We also had a couple other questions. Someone said, does health insurance cover therapy? I think that was similar to the previous statement that the lady made about the program, right?
Mm-hmm. Most health insurances do cover therapy. Yeah. I have rarely had a client who had health insurance and mental health services weren't covered, but normally it does cover therapy. What normally happens is, if you have a deductible that you haven't met yet, then you may have to pay a fee out of pocket that's a little bit higher. But if not, all you'll have to do is pay your insurance company's copay. And it's normally for behavioral or specialty services. So I've had some clients who see me and all they pay for a session is $15. I've had other clients who come and see me and then they might pay a little bit more. So most health insurances do cover therapy.
Mm-hmm. That's good to know that it's affordable, especially with some people, aren't working as much. So the fact that they have that access is really good.
Yes.
Right.
I agree.
However, that one's different from the employee program in the sense that for insurance, they do have to know your diagnosis in order to cover your service.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So
if you don't want
them to know, then you have to do self-pay.
Not just that, if you don't want them to know the diagnosis, but insurance companies require a diagnosis before they'll pay for your session.
Oh, wow.
So it's as if, let's say you just wanted therapy because you needed someone to talk to about, everyday things. The insurance company says, we have to have a diagnosis. So if you recognize, I just need to have someone to talk to as I go through this, and you don't want to have a diagnosis just because the insurance company is requiring one for billing purposes, then self-pay is the way to go as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is that when you kind of set the money aside, or they take it out of your paycheck every week?
For self-pay?
Yeah,
that's coming out of your pocket. It's let's say
okay.
Yeah. But the thing is, some therapists, if they know you're doing self-pay, they'll offer a sliding scale to make it more affordable for you. So based on your income, they might reduce the fee. The other option too is sometimes if it's not something that's as serious because it doesn't warrant a diagnosis, you may want to consider coaching services as opposed to therapy services, because coaching services, they're also self-pay, but it might be less than a therapy session.
Yeah.
And still get the help they need.
Mm-hmm. How could someone gauge whether or not they would need coaching versus therapy?
They probably wouldn't. I think you should do a consult.
Yeah.
Do a consult with a therapist, and then the therapist might be able to tell you. Because I've had people who think they need a simpler service, and then after I've done the history or whatever it is, I realized, oh no, this goes further than they thought it did. At which point I'll make the recommendation.
Absolutely, that's very good.
Yeah.
There's another question that says, Dr. Patricia Dixon, she said, what are your thoughts on mental health professionals? What are your thoughts on how mental health professionals can support each other? Sorry.
I think for sure we have to check in on one another. Like, a lot of us happen to be connected, and I'm so happy about that because I've noticed that we're connecting a lot more with each other, and I feel like I know more providers, whereas when I first launched, I was kind of like, the only providers I know is if I find them on Psychology Today or something. But now I feel, especially in the era of social media, it makes it easier to connect with each other. So sometimes I'll do that where I check in on another therapist and I'm like, hey, how are you holding up? How are you doing? And it just kind of gives them that outlet to talk to someone else who is experiencing, you know, similar feelings, similar struggles, helping other people deal with the pandemic and maybe feeling the stress themselves. And then on top of that, when you're in school, they kind of teach you techniques for you to manage. So it's like, let's say you're going through something, you can't remember those techniques right then and there. That other therapist could be like, you know what, remember, we got to do this, we got to do that, you know, just to kind of help you stay on track. So
I would add that one of the things we have to remember are mental health professionals are people too. So whether you're a therapist, whether you're a psychologist, whether you're a counselor, whether you're a social worker, we're people too. And in the same sense that we said earlier, before you help your family, your kids, your spouse, you have to also help yourself. Therapists have to do the same thing. So we take care of our own mental health and wellness. And then if we need to, we reach out, we support the other mental health professionals around us. We check in, we ask them how they're doing. If they seem off, asking them, you know, is everything okay? I noticed that you were a little off today. If you want to talk, I'm here. Being a shoulder and an ear, I think that that's a major way that we could provide support to other professionals.
I love it because y'all are like superheroes. Like every therapist, honestly, like especially during this time, and it's so important that with you guys taking care of yourself, that really helps you be like, you know, an asset to helping everybody out in the community.
Yeah,
right.
And you can't provide competent services to your clients if you're not taking care of yourself too.
Exactly.
That goes back to what my sis said earlier.
There's another question, I think, following up from the question about the insurance. If one's insurance does not cover therapy, can they use the HSA/FSA accounts to pay?
I have not seen someone do that, but I would think you can. I would think you can, because you can even use those to pay for like services like massage therapy. So, I would think that behavioral health falls under that umbrella as well. And I've even heard, I don't know if this is necessarily true for therapy services, but I know people who have had either testing services or something similar to that, assessment services. And it's almost like you could use the amount from your HSA, FSA, and it still counts towards like your deductible or something like that. You know, sometimes you can even do things like that. So I'm pretty sure you can. I'd have to look into it more though.
Yeah, definitely good question.
Right. We do need therapy.
Yeah, I saw that. Another question from Hey Donnie is, as daughters of Caribbean immigrants, how do you continue to raise mental health awareness without overstepping cultural boundaries? Ooh, that's a good one.
I love that question, just because one of the things that you guys may not know, or maybe some of you do, my sister actually did her dissertation on what are the barriers to help seeking among Caribbean populations. Wow. One of the things that it's very important for you to keep in mind, if you just completely disrespect or throw out someone's culture, you're not getting anywhere with them. So you have to come in with an acknowledgement, a respect of the fact that this is their culture, okay? respect that. And then if you learn enough about their culture, that's what we call cultural competence, it actually helps you to better serve that person. Okay?
Yeah.
So let's say, for example, if you're dealing with Caribbean populations, especially, it's all about family and it's all about religion a lot of times. Okay? If you don't include those things in your therapy, you might be shooting yourself in the foot. So you want to know, how can I make sure that their family or their social support network is involved? And if they are religious, how can we make sure that that is also included so that we have this holistic, comprehensive treatment for them? And that will actually reduce some of the resistance that they are. So I have had clients in the past who came to see me and they were of Caribbean descent. And it was so difficult for them to come into my office. But when I would ask them, you know, what made you take the plunge? If it wasn't a serious, like let's say a traumatic incident, it was a family member actually stepping in and saying, you know, I really think you should speak to someone.
Yeah.
So when your family normalizes it, or when you can get a religious leader, a pastor, a priest, a minister to actually co-sign it. So maybe doing workshops in the community, all of those things can help you to raise the mental health awareness and make them more comfortable reaching out.
Yes.
Yeah, I would also say you have to be aware of social structures. Just like we have a social structure in place in America, you know, these respective cultures have their own structure. So let's say you're holding a family session and they're coming from a patriarchal background. First family session, you completely kind of disregard the father figure. They're not coming back, just so you know. They're not because for them it's almost like, well, I can't even respect this person because they don't even know that they're supposed to look at me. That doesn't necessarily mean that they have to leave with the orientation that they came in, but in order to first work with them, you have to know what they're expecting most likely, and that doesn't mean that your perspective cannot change.
Yeah.
So sometimes I think a lot of people don't realize that, but initially you may start off thinking a certain way because this is a cultural stereotype, or this is the way that this culture typically is. As you meet the family, you may start to notice that, oh, this family is a little different. And you have to be accepting of that. You have to be accepting of the fact that, okay, this family is a little bit different from the general culture than I thought, so I have to make adjustments. So it's kind of like coming from a perspective of, I know a little bit about the culture and I know what's going on, but at the same time, you have to let yourself have that flexibility where you can adjust if you notice that something is a little bit different. Yeah. The last thing I would say with respect to overstepping those cultural boundaries is just be mindful of the effects that certain techniques or advice that you give, how it can impact the family. I remember one person who during our focus group, she said, if you give me advice and it gets me kicked out of my house, I'm upset.
Wow.
So it's like, yeah, because you're not to account how their family structure might be or different things that they have to deal with. So I think that keeping that in mind and keeping your recommendations or your, you know, your therapy techniques in line with that will help in the long run as well. And those people will then go tell other people, where it's like, you know, no, you should see a therapist. I went to so-and-so and they helped me out really. I didn't get kicked out or whatever. They were mindful of this and that. And then that is more likely to get other people through the door once they've heard that someone else had a good experience.
Yep. That is true.
Yeah. That's awesome. I love it that at first I love that they created that question because it brought so much knowledge even to myself that you don't think about people going to therapists that are respectful of the cultures that they have in their life because you don't think it plays a big role. How can someone find a therapist that is kind of aligned with their culture or like understands their perspective, how they like move in the world so that way they can have a better experience?
Well, that's why we need more of us in the field.
That's true.
Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, what I want to say is, number one, never assume that just because someone is of the same ethnic or racial background as you, that they're going to get you. When it comes to choosing a therapist, you have to really search. Do your research, go online. If the psychologist has a website, go read their bio. What do they say on their website? Who do they normally see for treatment? If they have testimonials, reviews, what do they say? And then don't be afraid to ask for a consult. Now, a lot of therapists will actually give you the first consult for free, but you can tell a lot about a person and whether you gel with them in that first conversation. So it doesn't be like a full hour. It could be a 10-minute conversation, and you can tell, you know what, this seems like the type of person who I would mesh well with versus this person, not so much. So don't feel like if you reach out to a therapist, you have to stick with them. What if you don't gel well with them? The therapeutic relationship plays such an important role. So definitely look until you find that right match.
Yes, that was me. When I found my therapist, I was like on the website trying to find her social media, because I think it's so important that you understand and make sure like who you're working with. Also, another question from Dr. Krista Marie, kind of similar. She said, how would you prepare for your first virtual session?
Have good Wi-Fi. No, I'm kidding. Go ahead.
Actually, though, that actually is a good one.
Yeah.
Because I've been doing telehealth with some of my clients, and the Wi-Fi can definitely be an issue. But other than that, I would say go into it with an open mind. And if you have questions, don't be afraid to ask. So a lot of times when it comes to our regular day-to-day routine, we don't want to ask questions because we don't want to look stupid, or we just think I should already know this. But the reality is, until you've been in therapy, you're not going to 100% know what to expect. So don't be afraid to ask questions. You may want to have specific goals in mind. What are you looking to get out of therapy? Where do you see yourself in, 6 months, a year, or whatever it is? And I think that will go a long way towards helping you get through that first session.
Yes.
Yeah. I also want to say, some people may only see it as a joke, but it's true. Like, don't lose your nerve. I think, let's say you're doing your first session and the connection's not that great or something, or it's kind of botchy between you and your therapist. Don't take that as, oh my God, I shouldn't be doing this. This is a sign. I think, push through it, things happen. And honestly, since more of us are home, it makes Wi-Fi more sketchy because more of us are online at the same time.
Yep.
Yeah.
So don't let little minor things get in the way. Let it be something that you truly give your best at it. And you're like, okay, even if things didn't go well this first time, we'll still find a way. I've known therapists who, let's say the Wi-Fi connection isn't so good, then they might say, okay, well, let's call. Or let's do something. Even if you're seeing them virtually, it's still going through a phone line so that the connection is better and you can receive your services. But if first time when you see it, you're kind of taking it as I shouldn't be doing this. They cut off 3 times already, so I'm done. Then that could be intimidating for you. I also think that you have to try not to be too closed off. A good therapist will know not to let you disclose too much information. If you start to do that, they'll stop you. But in that first session, you want to be honest. You want to be as open as you possibly can, because that's going to help us really gauge where you should go. You shouldn't be too, I shouldn't say that, because if I say that, then she's going to think I'm crazy. Now, what you're doing is you're affecting your treatment plan, because now we think you're presenting with something because of what you said, but you left out something else that could help us understand your presentation a lot better. So I would say just be as open as possible. If a therapist sees you're revealing too much on the first session, they will stop you. At least a good therapist will. And then you guys can go ahead and figure things out from there.
Yes.
Another thing I would add to what my sis said, when it comes to disclosing things to your therapist, it's okay to even tell your therapist that you're struggling to disclose. So I've had clients who have actually said to me, I feel embarrassed even saying this. Or, I'm not sure that I feel comfortable delving into that just yet. That's perfectly okay. It's not going to be easy for you to meet a random stranger and then just bleh everything. So it's okay to actually admit to your therapist, I'm struggling to disclose, or, I'm used to being criticized, so it's very hard for me to express myself. It's okay to say those things too.
Yeah, I'm glad you guys mentioned that, because it can be so intimidating. Even my going back to my first time going to the therapist, but like you were saying, the more and more you see that person, you get more comfortable. Or even if you're not comfortable, you can always find another therapist that you feel like you connect better with.
Yeah,
Right.
I agree.
Well, I think that was it for the questions. Did anyone else have any other questions that they wanted to ask at all?
I just see they said repeat what you said. I don't know what you're talking about. I'm sorry.
I think that was way back then.
Yeah. Oh, well, see, Dr. Krista Marie also said they should be able to use FSA funds, but to double check.
Okay.
So that's
Awesome.
good to know. Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Someone else
Okay.
said this was so helpful. I'll be starting a residency with telemedicine, and I'm concerned with making a virtual connection with my patients.
Yeah, it can be tough especially when it's not what someone's used to, when you need to have that in-person feel. So I'm glad it's helpful, and I do think that with the changes that are coming, people are going to start being more open. Once they see the experience similar to an in-person experience, I think that will also help them feel a lot more comfortable.
Yeah.
Another thing that I wanted to add, there's the comment here that said, concerned with making a virtual connection with my patients. One of the things that has helped me to connect with my patients is being authentic and being genuine. People relate to people who are actually being authentic, congruent, and genuine. And then another thing that we didn't really delve that much into, but I do want to mention it, is as a therapist, but especially as a Black therapist, there are certain things that you may experience that your counterparts who are not Black may not necessarily experience. And that's something that it will happen. So I definitely don't want you to feel like, something is wrong with you. There may be people who underestimate you. There may be people who question what you say, almost as if you don't know exactly what you're talking about. Let your knowledge speak for itself. Yeah. But you will have those people who will judge based on what they see. But let your knowledge, let your actions, let your service and the quality of care speak for itself. And I've had clients who, when they first saw me, they were kind of like, "Oh, you look young," or comments like that. But now it's like they can't get enough of me. So me, genuine, authentic, they could relate to me. It helped them to come around. And in some cases, you may have clients who don't necessarily come around. The two of you just don't mesh well or connect. That's okay too. Don't take it personally. You are not for everybody.
Yeah, speak life into her.
So too, and you also can't let, with kind of like what she was saying, even if you know that certain things are coming, that's why we know them. Like, let's say someone may judge you based on the way that you look or you present yourself. You already know that that's coming, so it helps you to know that that's coming. It also helps you to know that you're not alone. There are other therapists who are dealing with similar things, and it's okay to talk about it. I have had other therapists come to me and they've told me, "Hey, I've been having this problem here because of XYZ." And then processing it together helps us so that we can still keep going despite that. Because sometimes they might tell you, "I'm not sure you can provide these services." And they might say it's because of something in particular. They might say, "Oh, like you look young," or whatever. We both get that a lot. But sometimes too, that just seems more acceptable to say. But there's other things that are probably making them question, how competent that you are to serve them. So keeping those, gender, racial discrimination biases in mind, there are certain things you can do to kind of prepare yourself so that when you encounter it, it doesn't hit as hard as it normally would. And I've even had, like, some people also do research on you. Like, I've had people where I've gone to see them for like a testing appointment, and we set it up over the phone, and I've done consults with them. When they come in, they're like, "Oh, I looked you up online and I found XYZ, this, and that." And I'm kind of not just related to psychology and testing. It's like they're doing a whole like background search.
Like a life search, yeah.
Exactly. So know it's coming. You can mentally prepare for it, and we can encourage one another. I feel like as people start to see, especially more minorities in medicine, it's going to encourage more people to join. And I think that's also going to help in terms of just making it this universal thing where we're not necessarily judged for other factors, but that people truly get to know our work as therapists and our accomplishments as opposed to prejudging based on other things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, absolutely. You guys are people too. Like, people can't just, like you're saying, just judge you based off of what they see. So it's really good. You mentioned a consultation, so you at least ask any questions that you have before you really commit to a specific therapist.
Right.
Well, I looks like that's it. Everyone's saying thank you so much. This was really helpful.
Okay.
Thank you guys.
There was one question that you forgot, Ashley.
I did?
Yes. How can one find a therapist or psychologist specific websites? And my sis and I had actually found 3 that we thought were really good that we wanted to share.
Oh, definitely.
The first one was psychologytoday.com. That's a general one. You can put in your address or your city and zip code, and then you can find a therapist that way. And then specifically for people of color, there's therapyforblackgirls.com and therapyforblackmen.org. So those are resources where not only you can look for a therapist, but you can filter it based on gender, religion, specialties, orientation. So it makes it easier for people who are actually looking for a therapist for them to find one.
Love it. Especially when you're a Black person in America, it's really hard to find someone that gets you. So I love that you guys shared that, because that's very important.
Right. Yeah.
Also, where can everyone keep up with you guys and your organization moving forward?
Well, they can follow us for sure on Instagram. If you're not following, please follow. It's at the Mental Health Sistas, meaning SISTAS at the end. And we're also in the process of building our website, so we're hoping that that's going to be up and running soon. We'll keep you guys posted on the page, and then we also have our individual accounts. Mine's is at Dr. Joe, meaning DRJO _, Ph.D, and hers is
at Dr. Dyona, so that's DRDYONA. And then one thing that I didn't want us to forget, our YouTube.
Yes.
YouTube. So please, in addition to following our individual pages, subscribe, share, tag a friend, tag 10 friends, please.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys so much. This was fun. This was so beneficial and helpful. I, without a doubt, know that a lot of people probably can benefit from this, especially just with what's going on right now.
Right. Yes. Thank you for having us.
Yeah. Thank you
No
so
problem.
much.
It was lovely chatting with you guys.
Yes.
Me too.
Me too.
Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome. Y'all enjoy the rest of your day.
Yes, you
All
too.
right.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Bye.